What's up, y'all, and welcome back to another episode of Free Game. I'm your host, Chris Hall, videographer and content creator, and today we've got a video for you. This actually came across my desk while I was scrolling on Instagram. It's a slightly old report from Channel 2 News out of Atlanta, but we're going to watch it and we're going to talk about it a little bit. I'm going to give my 2 cents as I always do. A study finds that Atlantans have lost over $1.2 billion in home equity and real estate dealings because, as you know, most of Atlanta, especially in the, let's say, impoverished neighborhoods, they come around and they gentrify or kind of tear down the older homes and buy the land and then build a newer property on top of that, and either they Airbnb it or they will go ahead and sell it for a profit, and that will start pushing minority groups out. And we're going to talk about that. Let's see what the report has to say.
Yeah, the reason it's part of the American dream is because it can help build the equity with an appreciating asset. And when you look at a house like this, 15 years ago, you would expect it to be owned by someone. But this home's for rent, and many of those are owned by corporations. And when that's the case, that means families are missing out on some equity. Owning a home used to be part of the American dream, as Patrick Vergan knows too well.
That's a dream that my parents, that they never saw.
See, Patrick is the son of Haitian immigrants, and 6 years ago, he achieved that dream by buying a home with friends.
One of my greatest accomplishments, I would say.
And down the street, well,
He bought a home with other people, and this was his biggest accomplishment, was buying a home. Remember that the buying a home is the American dream, or was.
the Haney's see a home as a chance to start building generational wealth.
If you have a kid, you can keep
Buzzword alert.
passing on. Like, generational wealth is something good to have.
But now,
So we're going to talk about that generational wealth. I think Black people have a treasure chest of buzzwords and phrases. In my opinion, I say this all the time, I think that we live in parables, quotes, sayings, and buzzwords. Really, we don't have our own independent thought that was developed from a series of research or experience or something like that. There are these words, especially generational wealth, because we can't seem to obtain it. So I think that's why it's used so freely, because people give you the attaboy for giving it a go. And man, he really tried to get generational wealth, but just couldn't do it. It's the man that's holding us down. And then we get into things like that. So in my opinion, when it comes to generational wealth and people in general, Blacks in particular, to where you believe that you're going to buy a home in Atlanta of all places, and then you're going to keep that home until your kids reach a certain age, and then that house is going to be what you have to pass on to your children. Now, let's dive into that a little bit. So let's just do some random Atlanta math. So let's say you buy a house for about $200,000 when you buy it, and then let's say you sit in it, and that's all you do is sit in it. So you go to sleep, wake up, and you go to your 9 to 5 occupation. And then that gains equity of, let's say, $100,000, right? So that gains equity for $100,000. So as you know, you can either take a loan out against your own house, or you can then sell that house at the going rate, and then you can get the profits or the proceeds after you've paid the remaining of your loan off. So let's say you walk out of there with about, 80 grand. So you've got 80 grand and 5 kids.
Hold on.
Right? 80 grand and 5 kids. So let's do some math here. I got my handy dandy calculator next to me. So we do some math here. You've got 80 grand and 5 kids. So if you divvy that 80 grand up that you've gained in generational wealth from your home, you have given all 5 of your kids $16,000 each to set them into this trajectory of generational wealth. So that's one thing, or one misnomer, that I feel like the blacks have been lied to, especially. I think it's just more easier to lie to the blacks for some reason. But they seem to have thought that you can buy a home, live check to check, be borderline poor for most of your life, have a multitude of children, whether in or outside of wedlock, and then you are going to purchase a home, keep it in perpetuity, and then sell it, or you may, perish or pass away, and then you pass this on to those multitude of kids in what you would call generational wealth.
Now, their neighbors are often no longer families, but corporations, as just 10 companies own more than 30,000 homes in metro Atlanta.
Half of the buildings around us are owned by corporations.
And Atlanta is ground zero.
So Georgia Tech's Brian Ahn wanted to know what that cost Atlanta communities. So a team studied 95 Atlanta neighborhoods to see how much residents lost in equity by selling to corporations.
What we documented was 1.2 billion loss in home assets.
And the biggest losers, according to the study, have been minority neighborhoods like Mechanicsville.
The biggest losers, wow. The biggest losers seem to be in the Mechanicsville area, which, as you may know, is a predominantly black area. And what ends up happening is, and I know people will have their disagreements on this opinion, but in my opinion, the behaviors, and this is actually highlighted in a book by Claude Anderson. I didn't read all of it. I read a little bit of it. It's called Powernomics, and it highlights the behaviors of the blacks and how they behave either with their own community, amongst each other, or how they deal or don't deal with their finances. And this just goes to show you, life is a game of Pac-Man. Once you all turn colors, that means that it's time to eat it up. No diddy. Because big bank always takes little bank. We think that we're going to hold these houses in these neighborhoods, and then we are going to maintain them ourselves. And that's the problem. We don't maintain these things ourselves. And just like the couple there, we believe that we're supposed to hold on to these houses and then sell them. And that alone will create this generational wealth.
Where Patrick and the Haneys live.
A lot of our friends are priced out of home ownership. I don't see it changing. I certainly see it getting worse.
And the study really did dive into how much these majority-minority areas, and what it found is that neighborhoods that had a majority of black residents actually lost more than $680 million in equity over that 10-year span. That's more than half, despite taking up only a sliver of the total metro population. We're live in DeKalb. Michael Dowdna, WSB Tonight.
Making that American dream tougher to come by, Michael. Thank you.
Making that American dream even tougher to come by. So that alone should show you my personal opinion and some personal things about me. I've purchased a home before, just one, purchased a townhouse, and then brand new construction. Bought it for about $250,000, put it on Airbnb, and rented it out a little bit for some short-term rentals, and it was cool. But then eventually prices got high, Airbnb got slow, and the mortgage is still needing to be paid. So that house is for sale. Should be closing on it towards the end of this month. But I had to myself wake up to realize that the American dream is not buying a house and either sitting on it or renting it out and hoping for the best. You may make profit for a few months, and I'm not saying this won't work out for you, but I believe that you should have some type type of skill in order to fall back on, or not even to fall back on. These, Turo, Airbnb, I've done both. And these things are just something to do. They're a side hustle until it doesn't become a side hustle anymore. I wouldn't recommend that you go off, and I have friends who call me about advice about Airbnb and Turo, and I actually try to stop them from doing it, to be quite honest with you, because it is a rat race. And unfortunately, the blacks are very confused, and we are easily manipulated by things that we see on social media and the internet and YouTube and things of that nature. And we believe that these are very lucrative businesses because there's a handful of content creators that can come on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube and tell you that this is what they did and they made hundreds of thousands of dollars from doing it. But you, my friend, do not have any skills. You do not know anything about business, and you can barely add, subtract, divide, and multiply. And we'll be talking more about this. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. If you like content like this, hit that like button and share the content as well. Also, comment in the comment section on different things that you may have seen, and you can send it to me. We are on Instagram at FreeGameBCH. We are on TikTok, FreeGameBCH, although I haven't really posted anything on TikTok as of yet. But coming soon, we will have more content. So don't touch that dial. As you know, there's always a video coming up right after this, right now. Hold up.
Worst.